Welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about the advantages of digital planning and physical planning. And do you notice that I said advantages and? Because I think they both really have upsides, and spoiler alert, I'm not going to come to the conclusion that one is better than the other. I use both, and at the end I'll tell you how I use each one. So let's start with digital. And we're going to be looking at my tablet because you're on my phone. There's a few things that are better on the tablet than on the phone anyway. The number one and most obvious thing that's great about digital planning is that it's portable. You usually can access it on your laptop, your phone, your tablet, so you probably almost anywhere you are can check your schedule. And planner, sometimes you don't carry your planner with you everywhere. Some people do, some people don't. I might be in the don't category more than I care to admit. So that's just the really obvious advantage of digital planning. My favorite thing that digital planning does really well, though, that, well, we don't have to do cons because, yeah, physical planners don't do this, is repeating events. So if you have, my son will have lessons, his guitar lessons are Tuesdays. At the beginning of the semester or the school year, I get a schedule of when the music school is closed, so I can just put it in as a repeating event and then take out the weeks that there's no lesson. And I can do that in a matter of minutes, and then it's all set up. I love that for meal planning. Let me know if you'd like me to walk you through how I do meal planning. I started shooting this last year and I just got overwhelmed with it, but I have a really cool system that I use in Google Calendar where I just use a rotating schedule so that we're not reinventing all the wheel all the time but not getting bored. But in any case, repeating events are really something that digital thing does really well, because a digital thing can just copy, whereas when you're looking at a physical planner, you're going to be physically writing it every single place. Another thing that your digital planning situation does like crazy is communicate with other people. So whether it's you wanting to let other people know your schedule, or you, like our school district, actually, I don't think I've imported it yet. Our school district puts out a calendar, although I'm going to get to that in a minute. Not 100% the only place you should have your kid's school calendar. Believe me. Actually, my work schedule, I just found out I can get that way. And sometimes sports teams, different people will communicate with you that way. You can also share it out. So it's really great for communicating. This is in my purse. Nobody else is really looking at it. And nobody else can add things to it either. The other thing that digital planning does really well that a lot of people rely on, and it saved my butt last week, is reminders, because it can ding and let you know that you have something. And literally, I had just sent my daughter up to her bedroom to practice before we were going to spin, and then I got a reminder that she had a dentist appointment. I had already looked at it in my planner and knew that we had time to do both, but for whatever reason, slipped my mind that she had the dentist appointment, and then I got the notification, leave in 3 minutes to make the dentist appointment, and we did. It all worked out. That's a helpful thing. Don't rely on it 100% though. What drove me to look at physical planners in the first place was that I just felt like I wasn't getting an overall sense of like what's going on this week. The weekly breakdown in particular for me, it's like nice to just see everything. On your phone you get a dot for every day, or you can get like a list of everything, but the list of everything doesn't fit on one screen for one of my weeks usually. Weekly hourly is one of my favorites. Gives me a skeleton of what's happening when. You can do more with colors or text or stickers or something to make things stand out if that's helpful for you. But I love that it just gives you like a quick picture, because like I said, when I look at my iPhone calendar, it puts a dot on days. If I look at the month, it puts a dot on the days when I have something, but I have something every day. So there's just a dot every day. There's kind of two aspects of planning too, which I'll get into I think a little more, where you're looking at planning as in scheduling and planning as in your to-dos and your goals and your motivations. And the thing is that it's so easy for most of us, I think, to get done the things someone else expects you to do. It has a time deadline. Those things are going to be the ones that get done. But the things that really move the needle in your real life are probably the things that you have to be a little bit self-driven and decide, I'm going to make that happen. With a physical planner, you can choose how things are weighted. You get a layout that works with how your brain works. And there are several different layouts. I've used several. I'll go over more. If there's some specific one you would like to see, I'm happy to go over that. So let me know in the comments. So I started with physical planning, having the summer that was really complicated schedule, and I was just wanting to get a week at a glance, really. And you just can get that really easily. There's so many different layouts. You can find one that works perfectly for you. Can't get it as well with the digital planning, although I will tell you, if you happen to have an Android tablet, the Android calendar, I think it's just the Android calendar. I think I downloaded it. I don't think it was native. It gives you like each day in a box, and you can actually see a whole list of what you're doing. And if I'd had access to that before I started physical planning, I don't know if I would have started. I'm glad I did. We'll get into that in a second. And at least on the tablet, I can't read it well enough on my phone to be of any use, but at least on the tablet, the monthly view of the Google Calendars app, it gives you a good sense of what's going on. The other thing, and it failed me when I forgot the dentist appointment, but in general, when I put things in digitally, it's like out of my brain. It's gone. I have no idea what happened. Whereas if I write it down, and I have a definite, like, not a photographic memory, but a visual memory, so I can kind of remember where I wrote something. And so I'm more likely, like, more than once, especially when I was younger, hasn't happened in a while, and wouldn't trust it now, but if I would get to the grocery store and realize, like, oh, I forgot my list, if I wrote it down, I will remember 8 out of 10 of the things that I had on my list. So that's not too bad. There was some study, and I can find it for you if you want, but it compared people who took notes in a class on a laptop versus people who took physical notes, and the people who took the written notes remembered more. And it just helps, for me, it helps things go into my brain, so I actually know what's happening. So let me give you my biggest digital planning fail was the year that I started importing the kids' school calendar into my phone. This was when I was working outside the home, and my kids were young enough that if they had a half day, I had to switch my schedule around so that I'd be home when they were home, because they were 7 and 8 or whatever. And I just started being able to pull in the Google Calendar, and I was so excited. I just did that, and I didn't put it on a physical calendar. And then it happened more than once. The kids reminded me that they had a half day the next day. And nothing terrible ever happened. I mean, there was never a situation where the kids came home to an empty house. But I was scrambling around having to email my boss going, I can't come in tomorrow, I forgot, and I didn't want to be that way. So that was not great. So it's really better for me to have things physically than I know about them. And so a lot of times what I'm doing when I am doing my physical weekly layout is really just transferring whatever is in my digital plan, which would be equivalent to a monthly, I would say, into my physical weekly layout. But that really works for me. Another thing that I really like about physical planning is that I can focus a little more on the to-do lists and the things that are not what everybody else expects me to do or what I've committed to do time-wise, but what I really want to be doing with my time, and find ways of, when I stop to think about how do I want to spend my time, when I realize that I have a lighter week as far as other people's expectations on me, I can go heavier on the amount of things that I can plan out for myself to do. For example, this week, my kids, when I'm filming this, my kids are gone, so I just don't have as much mom taxiing to do. So I'm trying to get some YouTube videos done ahead of time so that when they're back in a week and I'm driving them around 24/7, I'm driving them around constantly again, I have that done. But it just encourages me because, with kids, they're busy, I'm busy, life is just like that right now. Just, I think for everybody, that it can feel like you can just feel like a ping pong ball when you're only thinking about your time in terms of hours and time and everything. You can just be very, just whatever's happening, I'm going to go with the flow, and that's good in a way, but then you never stop and think like, okay, but what do I want to do? You know, what do I want to make sure, what's important to me to make sure I get done? And I feel, for me, like physical planning is a good way for me to just put a little bit of attention on how do I want to be spending my time? It really matters. So I feel like it helps me be, I hate to use the word proactive, but that's the word that fits. The final advantage that I feel that physical planning has is that it's just really satisfying. If you've never tried it, try it. Some people love to make it a big creative outlet. Since I do creative design work, that's my work. I don't necessarily feel like, oh, I need the creative outlet, but there is just something really satisfying about getting everything out of my brain. And even when I'm doing more creative work, I notice that I will start writing more lists and doing more. But it really feels, I can't explain why it feels more like you got something done when you write something down physically. There are things that I do for productivity digitally that are super productive, and I'm glad that I do them, but I think that feeling of satisfaction, having really accomplished something in your planning process, physical planning is great for that. If I could only do one, physical planning or digital planning, I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. Probably would have to be digital simply because of the communication. And if you didn't have that at all, what would you do? Thank goodness I don't have to make that decision. I can use both. I love digital planning for more long-range planning, for getting, doctor's appointments, things like that. When you're at the doctor's office, you want to have the kids' school schedule in your phone so that you know the days that it works for them to have a doctor's appointment. I like to do that digitally. I would call that a monthly calendar. Although I do love to have a physical monthly calendar in the kitchen. I just like it. I've gone almost 100% digital, I think, for meal planning in the past year, partly because of my repeating schedule, which Google Calendar for that, for my meal scheduling, which I'm not even doing right now over the summer. We'll talk about that too if you want. Being a little more free-flowing with the planning, with the meal planning over the summer. But I also keep my grocery list digitally usually. I use an app called Wunderlist, and if you want to hear about how I use Wunderlist, I'm happy to talk about it. Let me know in the comments. I also can show you the recipe apps and stuff that I use. Oh, there's so much I really want to talk about meal planning. Let me know. I could talk about it all day. Let me know if you want to hear more. Exercise is also something that I plan digitally. I can register for about a month of classes at a time, and then just add that to my week as I'm filling my week out. Things that I do physically, I've probably said weekly 100 times. You probably realize by now. I like to see a weekly layout physically, and that way I can pull in all the digital things, make sure I have everything in my brain, and that's apparently the amount of time that my brain can hold on to something. I also tend to move to writing down physically when I'm doing more creative work, like YouTube, things like that, YouTube, new designs, whatever. Some of that's kind of by necessity, like sometimes if I'm traveling, I'll do that on a plane, and I'll be like, but I guess I could, I use Evernote. I could type things in. Actually, if you want to hear more about how I use Evernote, let me know. I love Evernote. That's another thing I could talk about all day. Weekly planning and planning for creative stuff are two things that I feel like I'm at my best doing those when I do them with pen and paper, one way or another. That's what I've found. Times I also push into daily planning, which I only do physically. I only do that when I need it. In this series, I will definitely talk about my own experience with daily planning versus weekly planning. I'd love to hear in the comments about how you use physical and or digital planning in your life. Whatever you'd like to see me cover in this series. If you enjoyed this video, click subscribe below. See you soon!